What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today Vampyr. In the dark and shadowy streets of ancient London, there's all sorts of mysteries lurking about. Who is Jack the Ripper? What is this deadly plague that's claiming the lives of so many thousands of people? And is there something supernatural that's going around in the darkness that's costing people so much of their lives? At the heart of all these different problems is a single man. This person, our main character, somebody who in life was actually a really good surgeon, a world-renowned healer, somebody who saved so many, but now has been cursed to be one of the undead. After waking up in a mass grave that was clearly supposed to be his tomb, he climbs up to the surface in search of blood. Against his will, he's now hunting, trying to prowl and get any sort of energy, life force to restore himself. This character is really probably the best part of the game because I do like his internal struggle, trying to deal with the fact that he is now technically the ultimate evil. He's part of the problem that is preying upon these innocents all over the place, but at the same time, you can do good. There are a lot of big choices throughout Vampyr that let you really influence how this city is going to be healed or destroyed. The way this sort of takes place is by the fact that when you first start playing it, you're pretty much on your own, wandering around, fighting people, trying to do anything you can to make it to the next night. However, things quickly start to evolve, and soon you're actually offered a job at a local hospital, given the night shift. That way you can continue your work as a blood doctor, helping people out and possibly searching for some sort of cure to your own remedy and maybe to try and cure the vampire plague in general. There are a lot of really bad things going on in this city, but really it can be boiled down to this. There are a lot of different kinds of undead wandering around. There are basic vampires that are incredibly weak called Skull, and these ones are relatively simple to take out. They're low health, but still way too strong for an average person, and so therefore they claim a lot of lives from anybody silly enough to go out at night. They easily swarm, overpower, and kill tons and tons of people. Then there are bigger threats, like more powerful vampires that can teleport around, create shadow clones, or just sneak up on people when they're unsuspecting by becoming a shadow themselves. They drink a lot of blood, but those still aren't as deadly as some of the higher echelons of things, like big hairy vampires which basically look like werewolves, or some of the elite ones that are humongous giants. All of this really combines to show that this is a city on the very edge of complete collapse. In order to restore it, you need to do a lot of different things. This, first and foremost, is definitely an RPG, so a lot of the ways you're going to be fixing problems is by doing random quests, trying to synthesize cures, or doing stuff like just trying to rescue random people when you cross their paths. That's what I'm doing here. This saves the person, of course, but it has an added benefit, which is that the city itself sort of has a health bar. Each district has a sort of way of measuring how many people are walking around alive and well, and as things get worse, the city slowly becomes more and more decayed, and people end up just dying off like crazy. And this can do stuff like make it where there's more vampire hunters wandering around the streets at night, which will make traveling more difficult, or make it where prices are actually higher at all the stores because they don't have enough people wandering around to try and get more supplies to refill their inventory. Now, everything I've said so far sounds pretty positive, but let me just say that Vampyr is actually not very good. In fact, I'd say that it is a very, very flawed project that has some interesting aspects to it. You see, the problem is, everything I've talked about here, it's just so undone. The story has some really fascinating parts to it, but it has the big flaw of nothing really makes sense. A lot of times you end up just wandering around and big events kind of just happen. Like, you'll be wandering through a warehouse and 15 dudes will jump you and they'll all have special names like you're supposed to know who they are. Or they'll do stuff like, when you get hired at the hospital, they immediately just walk you into the place. You already have an office that's completely set up with a name placard on it and everything. How did they make this in literally seconds? But it goes deeper than that because there's all sorts of different occasions where I was left just scratching my head and wondering why it happened. For example, during one occasion, I was trying to perform open heart surgery on a guy, and during it, the characters kept going back and forth between arguing, because I guess we're supposed to be enemies now, to to suddenly being best friends. See, this game has a big flaw to the conversations, which is the fact that it tries so hard to have this branching path system. You can unlock extra dialogue. Since you're a vampire, they kind of have this extra ability, which is slight mind control. You can influence people's thoughts. So as you get more knowledge, you can ask harder questions and dig for the truth. Now, this is cool for trying to get to the bottom of different mysteries, but it also makes it where conversations can really zigzag to a very obscene amount, to the point at which I could be talking to somebody and 1 minute they're screaming at me in anger, and the next minute I think they're about to kiss me because they love me so much. This completely sums up the combat as well, because most of the time I felt like I was completely in control, easily eliminating foe after foe, teleporting around, using super attacks. I was essentially a super soldier, but other times things would just randomly get way too strong for absolutely no reason. Since this is an RPG, it has a very annoying thing, which is that every enemy basically looks and acts the same, whether it be a basic zombie-like foe or one of the super werewolves. But here's the thing, every enemy has a little number next to their name, which explains how much damage they're going to do, and it doesn't really make sense, but seriously, you can be in an area and be fighting a bunch of level 11 guys and go around a corner and be jumped by a level 20 guy who kills you in one hit. And they never really explain this. The entire city is open world, but it sort of just forces you to only go to certain zones because anywhere else you're instantly going to die. Why even bother making it open world if you're going to constantly be shoving me down these same similar alleyways over and over again until eventually more spots become quest markers and I have a reason to go there? It feels like too much of me being led by the hand. I genuinely believe that earlier in development this probably had less enemies and more exploration, and it just didn't work out, so now they've shoved in tons of really random boss fights and made it sort of a clunky mess. I do enjoy the fact that the combat system is real tight. The animations aren't superb, but just getting in the nitty gritty, trying to pick up different weapons, upgrading your skills, and pounding people in the face is great. And I also enjoy that as you get stronger, it really feels powerful in a nice raw way. As you kill different kinds of undead, you get experience points that as you go back to your shelter, sleeping for the night lets you upgrade different skills. These are obvious things like increasing your health or making it where you have better defense, but you can also do stuff like teleport into enemies, drink more blood per hit, or do some things like shoot a spear made out of blood. These talents are exceptionally fun to use, and I do think that they're great, but there is another big flaw to combat, which is that stunning in general is extremely overpowered, and I don't know why they didn't really notice this. If you pick up a weapon that stuns by default, you can easily drink anybody's blood, and while you're drinking blood, nobody else will hit you. I was able to flawless certain bosses, or even some of the toughest foes like priests in the street, because everybody else would just stand there and wait for me to kill their friends over and over again. Vampyr is a game that tries to do a lot of stuff and fails in a lot of aspects, but the core pieces of it are interesting enough that I do think that if you could rent it, it's something that'll probably be interesting for at least a couple hours. The story itself isn't super long, so unfortunately this definitely seems like the kind of title that you pick up in an afternoon, play it for a bit, and then quickly forget forever. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Vampyr a 6 out of 10. I'm sadly starting to think that we're bumping into the edges of bad open world games, where indie studios are trying to make something that's really large and impressive, and they end up creating a very thin experience because of it. I hope that this is not a trend that continues, because this game, if it just had even 20% more depth, might actually be worth playing. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you for helping me reach 100,000 subscribers. You guys are absolutely awesome. Keep dreaming. Oh, hey. I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.